The record button. We have two. Okay. Anytime you're ready, go ahead and go.
Hello, this is Elliot Popkin, author of The Circle at thecircleletter.com, and you are listening to Vroom Vroom Veer with Jeff Smith. Listen up.
Perfect. You've practiced. You practiced. You did. I think you did.
I mean,
it's okay. I like it.
I do have the.
You came prepared.
They said you do a sticky, and yeah. I got it.
Well done. Ready. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Yeah. Good job. All right. I'm going to hit stop. I'll be right back. Make a sticky.
Are you ready to thoughtfully steer away from your revved up, frenzied, and far too often scripted life? Then welcome to Vroom Vroom Veer with Jeff Smith, where he guides you down the road differently traveled by sharing unique experiences with guests who have managed to shift away from a life stuck on cruise control and veered their way into a more authentic and fulfilling one in all sorts of interesting and kind of remarkable ways. Get ready to Vroom Vroom Veer with your differently traveled road chauffeur, Jeff Smith.
Kiya Frazier and Oscar Frazier. Thank you so much for being on Vroom Vroom Veer and welcome to the show. How's it going?
It's going good. Thank you so much for having us.
Things are great.
All right. So you guys are at KO Thought Leaders and you can text business to 678-672-1444. That's a whole number now. What happened to those short numbers? We don't know.
Yeah, life happens, right?
Yeah. So talk a little bit separately about what you're most excited about in your business today, because I know you have different roles in the business.
So for me, we've streamlined. We used to be so broad. We had a lot of great grandiose plans and everything. And I think now we're learning how to kind of focus in on specific goals that we want to reach before we move to the next. So I'm excited about I'm excited about us streamlining and really focusing in and making each one of our ideas, the best that it possibly can be before we move to the next idea. Yeah.
And I'm excited really about moving into the KO Thought Leaders trajectory.
Yeah.
What this really is for us, it's our story. Yeah. And we're getting to share this with other couple-preneurs, aspiring entrepreneurs. This is truly our passion, man. And we're so excited about going in this direction.
Awesome. I like the focusing thing. In the military, we have a rule called KISS. Have you ever heard of the KISS rule?
Keep it simple, stupid.
Yep.
Yes.
Keep it simple.
Yeah, that's the one. Okay, so later on, we are going to talk about a story from Kiya, and that is going to involve her life before she met Oscar, and vice versa. We're going to get a story from Oscar before he met Kiya, and their brains are spinning as I speak. I can hear them. What am I going to say? They don't know either, and we don't know, but it'll be fun to find out. Okay, so this is going to be slightly different. We're not going to do like your typical Vroom Vroom Veer show, so we're going to focus in a little bit more on your stuff and your story, okay? Instead of the typical go back and get the life story. So let's see, where did we start? I know I read in your stuff that you guys lost everything in 2012, okay? And that totally changed your life. So just talk as a couple. What was going on before, during, after? What was the event? Just go ahead and riff on that.
So we got engaged in 2011, right?
Okay.
And the wedding was at the beginning of 2012. We were both working in corporate space. We had this not grandiose, but we had a great plan in place of how we were going to use the money that we were making in corporate space and stack that money and be able to build our own business. And we both had an entrepreneurial spirit. So we had this great plan. We were, Oscar was in program management and federal space, and I was in marketing and public relations in federal space. So, we were doing great. And so we went off to Maui. We got married. We had our honeymoon. It was beautiful. So beautiful. So we're on this great high coming back from the honeymoon and everything. And 2 days later, I got a call that I was being let go. So
lovely.
It was just like, whoa, what the hell? What is happening?
Yes.
WTF.
And so,
our planned for Oscar to roll out of corporate space first and go into entrepreneurship, and then me to follow shortly behind. It just got flipped on its head, dumped to the side. Went from a dual income down to a single income, and it's just like, oh my God, what are we doing? Right. So we had to have a serious come to Jesus moment with each other. We sat down and we seriously discussed what our goals were. We got really transparent, and sometimes getting transparent is an uncomfortable space when you're a couple,
definitely,
especially newlyweds.
Oh yeah.
But we had to have that uncomfortable conversation about what we wanted for our future. And we decided that I was going to go ahead and start building the business while Oscar was still in the corporate space.
Right. Got to pay the bills.
That brought its own challenges.
Yeah.
So I spent majority of my day, putting in paperwork and getting everything stood up and, trying to figure out where we were going as far as grabbing clients and making sure we had everything documented.
You are hustling. You are hustling.
Yeah.
And Jeff, now the part that she's not mentioning to you is about 2 months after she got let go, I received a phone call. At this time, I think my portfolio at the group I was with was about 23 million. And I had 147 employees across the US. And one of the banks that I was supporting at the time gave me a call and said, look, we're doing cutbacks. We need you to get rid of some of your team. So I said, okay, fine. What's the sum number? What do you mean by that? And they said, everybody. And so I said, well, that's not some. That's some. It's everyone. And so I had to,
yikes.
So Jeff, I elected to actually have a individual conversation with each one of those people. And that was a very, very stressful time on top of the home life, trying to keep Kiya balanced and what she was doing. I'm trying to stay balanced. And then after I let everyone go, Jeff, probably the next week, I got the phone call and then I was let go.
Wow.
And so go from a dual income to a single income to a zero income in about 3 months of time was more than traumatic.
That is like crisis management. You're where we got the backline of global crisis management was from that.
Our crisis.
But we learned so much during that time, Jeff. And I learned the importance of consistency, of patience, all of these things that we, at the end of the day, were able to kind of combine to launch this whole thing called KO Thought Leaders. And we're so excited about it now.
Wow. So let's, if you don't mind, I want to drill down into some of the feelings that you guys went through.
Sure.
Yeah, because I think we all go through this at some point, right? But when you're young and coming up, right, and learning and in school, you think that sort of stuff doesn't happen to you, right? I'm not the guy that gets let go or, it's everybody else. But then it happens to you and it's like, things get like uncomfortably real. It's like, oh, I got to go out and get another job or make this business work or whatever.
Feast or famine, man. It became feast or famine.
Right.
And so here's an interesting concept that Kiya and we kind of chuckle about sometimes, right? So you have folks who are entrepreneurs, but they still have a full-time job, right? So it's kind of a part-time entrepreneur. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's totally okay.
Obviously,
but the safety
gotta
net
pay the bills.
Is I'm sorry?
Got to pay the bills.
You got to pay the bills.
Yes.
The safety net in that is every 2 weeks you get a paycheck.
Right.
But the other side of entrepreneurship that we went down, kind of a slippery slope, was no paycheck. And if you didn't find clients, you literally were eating, ramen noodles and hot dogs or whatever it is that you may consider to be a help me meal.
Right.
That's what we had to do, and it was very real, man. And I remember times looking at Kiya, and just seeing the frustration on her face and knowing that she's not telling me it, but I could see that she was frustrated. It was predominantly with me because I think I was trying to put so much program management on our marriage that it was like, wait a minute, Oscar, we're married. Did you forget that part? Do you remember that, Kiya?
I do. And that's when we had to establish lanes, what lanes we were going to run in. So with him being on the program management side of the house, it was like, okay, that's your lane.
He's going to go. He's going to get back
into
into project and just time it out again, right?
Yeah.
And say, okay, we need more runway space here.
That's exactly. We had to. If we didn't establish lanes, we probably would have torn each other to pieces, and we wouldn't be married to this day.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the biggest things that we learned from the whole entrepreneurial, losing everything and deciding that was the nudge that we needed to actually go into entrepreneurship.
Okay, so you guys didn't go out and get jobs; you just started hustling.
We just started hustling.
That's what we did.
We started
That's
hustling.
amazing. I figured one or both of you would have gotten a job. So congratulations, because that takes a lot of courage.
Yeah.
Our first business plan that we wrote, and after we both were out in corporate, we did it for $300. Do you remember that?
I do.
Because we didn't know what to charge.
That was the best $300 you ever earned in your life.
We were excited. Absolutely.
Yes. Yeah.
Absolutely.
No,
the first
for real.
client, we were ecstatic.
Yeah. I learned something about me when I went through. So like I spent a lot of time trying to, don't worry about dogs barking in the background. That's okay. It's all good.
This is called Room Beer, right?
This show is all about jazz. So that's all good. So I was going to say, like, when I went through some stuff, that's okay. The dog can keep barking. But I lost my train of thought. What was I talking about? Let's listen to the dog while I gather my thoughts.
While you're thinking of that, Apollo is about 11 years old. He's a boxer.
Oh, wow.
And he's just a handful. When anyone walks past the door or knocks on the door, he goes berserk. And that's what just happened. But again, being that the show is called Room Beer, it teaches us how to
improvise.
Veer, right? We're veering right now.
You veer in the moment. And thank you for taking the reins, because I was having a blonde moment there. I totally lost my train of thought. I was like, I was about to say something and the dog barked. Damn it.
Sorry about that. He's got a mind of his own.
No. It's all good. But I did remember. So thank you. You were right. As you were talking, I remembered. So I went through a long time thinking I wanted to be or was an entrepreneur. Okay. And I'm not. That's what I found out. I'm kind of like a type B. I don't know if I know type A's are like what they consider driven people, like what it takes to be an entrepreneur. Your brain is going all the time and you're thinking about ideas and it's not even necessarily about making money. It's like the way you express yourself creatively is business. I get that now, right? Not me. I came at trying to be an entrepreneur to do less, right? And when I say that, right, and you go, you're like, no, that's not what happens. As soon as I find out, no, it's way more work than having a job, I'm like, I'm out.
Totally, man.
It definitely is.
It's like there's like self-employed.
Right.
There's self-employed, then there's like entrepreneur.
Right.
And it's two very different things, man. Absolutely.
Right. Well, I learned, so I don't want to leave everybody on a bummer. So like I retired from the military, so I got Air Force retirement. That's that. Now talk about passive income. I get paid for remaining a U.S. citizen and not being a felon. And I've been doing it for, 52 years almost. I'm pretty good at it.
You took good care of yourself, man. You look really good, Jeff. You took care of yourself.
Thank you. Well, I've lost count of how many chins I've got.
I cover mine with a beard.
I'm working on it. Yes, it doesn't work for me. I tried to grow a beard. You wouldn't want to see the pictures. I look like Ted Kaczynski. Okay, so nice digression. Let's move on. And thanks for the dog, and thanks for the story. Okay, so let's get into how to keep the bedroom. So I'm thinking this has to do with don't bring business in there or keep that business the right business, bedroom business.
Yeah.
That's it.
Are we done?
You want to talk about that?
So our brains don't turn off. And
right.
Oscar is more, I would say he plays in that realm more than I do. Like sometimes I can unplug, but Oscar has a hard time unplugging. So we've learned that the bedroom is not necessarily the right place, especially whenever, we're snuggling, doing some other things, things, in the bedroom, it's not the right place to now let's talk about what our next business venture is going to be, or that proposal that we've got to get out the door next week, or, anything else going on in the office space.
I made so many of those mistakes, man. Because my brain tends not to shut off. I would come home and I'm talking to Kiya and I'm like, so tomorrow we've got to do X, Y, Z. It has to be done by this time. And she's like, dude, where's my husband?
Right.
Like you're talking to me like an executive.
Yeah.
And where the hell did you go at? Where's the guy that I married in Maui that was happy, that was like jovial? Now he's like a drill sergeant in the bedroom. He's like, Oscar, like this is not going to work. So I remember it affected every aspect of our married life. If you can hear what I mean there. Yes. I mean, it literally everything stopped for a while because it was like, I don't like this guy, right? And I think Kiya, if you're being honest, I think I became a bit of an asshole.
Yeah.
During that time.
Oh no, I think I get this, right? And I think you guys can both sort of add to this conversation because I worked with program managers in the Air Force, right? So I've been in Fed space all the time. Okay. Yep. So engineers, program managers, they're not assholes at work, right? But you wouldn't want that same personality traits in the bedroom, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I don't want you to open up the project now, honey. That's not what we're doing here. I get that. Right. But when you start, it's hard. That's a hard lesson to learn.
It really is.
It is hard,
especially because you guys are kind of in the same space too, like federal, right?
It's hard to transition from business into being intimate, right? So if we're having an agreement about, what direction we're taking the company or what project we're going to actually say yes to,
right?
And we just finished arguing about that. It's hard to then come and say, "Oh, sweetie, give me a hug and let's cuddle and be romantic."
I'm gonna go turn on some Barry White music now and give you that look, right?
There you go.
And she still sees the project manager, and she's a little pissed.
I'm over here trying to give her like the low Barry White voice, and she's like, "Dude, get away from me."
Right.
That's right. Not having it.
Not turned on.
So, what did you do about it? What sort of strategies did you come up with to fix that problem? Obviously, boundaries.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So we started carving out space for talking business because we're both in the same space. We could be sitting watching TV and then start up a conversation about something dealing with business. That's perfectly fine.
Yeah, because you can pause TV.
Exactly.
Right.
So we just decided that, we once we got to a good place, we found us an office space.
Okay.
And we decided to start leaving business at the office. It's okay if it comes up in the conversation while we're watching TV, or maybe we're making dinner and, one of us has a question and we want to discuss it. Cool. Yeah. But once we kind of deprogram, we're sitting down for dinner, that becomes our time.
Okay. All right. So dinner is sort of like the boundary. It's like,
right.
If after the end of dinner, no more business talk.
No more business.
Now we're just us. Right. I got it. So what happened? I can't hear you. Can you hear me?
No, we're still here.
Okay, good. I had one of those. Wait a minute. My audio's screwed up. Okay, it's all good. Okay, so let's see. So we've already sort of talked about this now already, but are there more steps that you use in your stuff when you talk about the art of unplugging that's separate? Or have we pretty much covered that already?
I think we've covered it. I think the last little piece I'll add into that will be on my side. I think it was a respect factor that I had to learn, right? And that's meaning to respect Kiya's boundaries, right? Okay. So she said and says, Oscar, this is my lane. I need to do my due diligence not to bleed into that, right? Because now I'm respecting her boundaries, and I think that's what I had to really learn the first couple years out the gate. It was painful for us both.
Right.
But I think that's helped us out tremendously now.
Yeah.
Just sort of letting each other be each other, right?
That's it.
And not sort of like figure out, oh, yeah, all right, when I did that, I was stepping on her toes. I was getting in her lane. Yes. That takes years and years. That's not just in business, by the way. I know you know this already, but I'm not an entrepreneur. I'm just a smart husband. I have to learn as I go. Most of us are just blundering around the relationship, running into walls, and going,
pretty much.
I'm going to be in the doghouse for a month. And I'm still learning too. I'm still learning. Like,
Agreed.
I know, like we've got these marriage pet peeves, my wife and I, right? And we've been married, like, I always forget, it's either 28 or 29 years. We got married in 93. So if you're good at math, somebody figure it out. Okay. So this is going to sound really stupid and make me look like an idiot and kind of an anal retentive asshole. That's okay. I'm sharing now.
All good.
So my wife is like an efficiency expert. She's from Japan, right? And everything in Japan is small, right? So like everything is like stacked and totally perfectly organized in the kitchen, right? So like if you want that bowl, you kind of have to take things apart to get there.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
And that always just annoyed me to no end. Right. I was just like, And then I thought, why is this bothering me? I mean, I have two hands. I can open it up. I can relax a little bit and get the bowl without having a moment.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
Compromise.
It's just, I don't know why men do these things. It's like I thought that everybody can hear my thoughts all the time and hear me whining in my head. That's not true.
Yeah. Still learning that one here, Jeff. Still learning that one.
It's just the wife is always looking for an easier way or way to make it easier, right? So everything fits, everything is in place and in order. We had those same things about the refrigerator, right? I try to sit things back in the same exact place every time. So it's like when you go to the refrigerator, you already know where to look. Hey,
yes.
I do the same thing too, don't I?
No. No.
Still learning.
I come in the kitchen, like Oscar does cook. He loves to cook.
We have this too.
Yeah. I'll come in the kitchen after he's cooked and I'm looking for something and I'm like, and it's like on the top shelf. There's things on the bottom shelf. There's everything has been rearranged. And I'm just like, okay.
Kiya, you need to meet Yayoi. She's trained me now. I know. Everything in the fridge has its spot. And don't mess with that. Yes. And I really don't have an opinion about where things go in the fridge. Right?
Yeah.
But she does. So I can respect that. I have a couple of rules. So like you can't block the vent. Otherwise things start freezing. So that's one solid rule that we can both accept. But other than that, yes, I'll just put the cheese back where it goes.
You see, that's the compromise. That's the compromise.
I'm working on it.
Well, you guys haven't been as married as long as us, so we're getting down into the nitty gritty. It's mostly nice now. Okay.
Yeah.
So before we forget, we were gonna have you each tell a story about your life before you met each other. So who wants to go first?
I can go first.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
So this is the story we teased out. You've been thinking about it for a while now. Go ahead.
Okay. So before,
No pressure.
No pressure.
Right. No, absolutely no pressure.
Maybe I can score a few bonus points. Before I met this wonderful man.
Sucking up first. Yes. Good. Got it. Okay.
That part.
Perfect.
So I saw my life. I always had an entrepreneurial spirit, but I didn't know how. I didn't know how I was going to make that transition. So I saw myself. I was taught, you go to college, you get a great job, and you work your way up through the company, and you strive to do your best and do your best work. So
Right.
that was the trajectory. I can't say the right word, can't get it out, but that was the path that I was on. I had gone to college, studied marketing and public relations, landed some great positions. In our generation, we were always taught, if you feel like you hit your ceiling, then transition to the next company and you might be able to, go up the ladder from there. So
Sure.
I had moved a few times through companies and everything, but I was really focused, really driven, and had put a lot of emphasis on being successful in corporate space.
Okay.
Had not thought about entrepreneurship, even though I wanted to do that. I
It's
just
sort of
was
like
not
in the back of your mind, but you didn't know how to make it happen.
Right.
A lot of people. But you
Yeah.
actually were coming at it from a different mindset than me, right? I came at it from this mindset of how can I do nothing and have fun all the time?
Yeah.
Yeah. It turns out you can serve in the Air Force 20 years and save a lot of money. That worked for me. Okay. Sorry. I interrupted. Keep going.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
Yeah.
So when we met in college, but we didn't date in college. We met in college.
Okay. All right.
Friends. So
well, he wasn't as fine as he
started-
is now. Is that something? I don't know.
Jeff, I was a wild SOB back in the day.
Oh,
man.
love it.
I was a wild SOB in college, man. Jesus Christ. I learned a lot since then, man.
So I wasn't even on his radar in college, pretty much.
Oh, really?
We were friends, but I wasn't one of the girls that he was going after. Let's just put it like that.
Okay.
But we stayed friends, and we actually circled back and, really started looking at each other like, wow, like we've got a lot in common.
That's always nice. Friends
everything
first,
from our,
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everything from my childhood to what we wanted to accomplish in life and the paths that we were on and everything just kind of synced up. And after a while, we just kind of started looking at each other with googly eyes. After we got into a lot of deep conversations during the period where we were just dating and getting to know each other, kind of still in that infatuation phase, that's when we really started pulling out that whole idea of being in business for ourselves. And we started talking through those type things. And then that light bulb kind of came on like, wow, I really can do this,
Okay.
And so I like to give Oscar credit. I haven't said this enough in life, but I like to give him credit for kind of pulling that spirit back out of me, because otherwise I think it would have stayed docile.
Okay.
And I probably would have stayed in corporate space and, did a 9 to 5. And not saying that there's anything wrong with the 9 to 5.
Just not for you.
It just wasn't for me.
Right. I get it. Thanks for sharing. That's pretty nice. Yeah. I think, that's a pretty common theme. It's like there's this drumbeat in the culture that is just telling you two things at once. Entrepreneurs are awesome, right? And then at the same time, you got to pay the bills, right?
Yeah.
So it's so easy to just take the easy path. I did.
Yeah.
I did. I mean, it may not sound like staying in the military is the easy path, but for me, it felt that way sometimes, even though it wasn't easy. It did feel kind of easy at times, and then also scary, hard, and stressful at other times.
I totally respect that.
I think that we're kind of groomed here in the United States. We're kind of groomed to
safety and security is the priority.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. And that comes from the parents and the culture. You hear it all the time. That's why whenever I hear of usually people that grow up with parents that are creative and maybe entrepreneurs, maybe not, but just encouraging of whatever you want to do and not trying to steer and scare, right? And just say, whatever you do, we'll support you. And if you try something and it doesn't work out, come back home. Those kids thrive, right?
Yeah.
They thrive. They don't have to go through that crap that we did. But, that's just good parenting, I think. They got lucky too. It's probably from their parents that they were like the best way to nurture. Anyway, sorry, I digress as usual. So Oscar, tell us a story before you met Kiya.
Cool. Well, I'm a country guy from Charleston, South Carolina.
Okay.
I grew up with a dad that was born in 1933 and a mother that was born in 1952. So there was a 19-year gap.
That's a big gap.
Yes. And I watched my parents struggle sometimes. I watched them, go to jobs and also try to build businesses and all these things coming up, man.
Oh, that's nice, though. That's a nice, you had that example.
Yeah.
Because somebody you knew tried to build a business. Whether it worked out or not, it seems more possible to you then.
Totally.
Yes.
And I think one of the things that my sister and I, we also witnessed were, times when, Christmas wasn't as Christmas as it should be, right? There weren't gifts.
That. I had some of those Christmases. Yep.
Yeah. So we saw the highs and the lows of what entrepreneurship looks like, right?
Okay.
And so for me, when I was in college, like I said earlier, I really was a wild SOB. I had a lot of fun. I partied pretty much the whole time, but I also was doing internships and I was working and I was doing things outside of the campus. And so when I left college, I started my career in the federal space. That's why when Jeff, when you were saying earlier about your federal experience, that resonates with me really well because that was where I grew up. I grew up in the public sector. I mean, I was in the lean I was in the Lean and Six Sigma world for a very long time. Yep. Program project management. I supported a lot of cleared agencies, and I got in almost too deep in some of those. And I'll probably leave it there. But when I decided,
I'm so glad I don't have a clearance anymore. It's so awesome not having a clearance. I totally hear you, dude. I totally hear you, man. Yeah. But got in way too deep. And during this journey, I wanted to be an entrepreneur, but I had a very clear path within the federal space. Right. I think at the age of 23, I was already an associate director with a very large, corporate consulting firm that was in the federal space. And so I had a path to partner. I knew exactly what I wanted to do. Yeah, and that's a lot of responsibility for a 23-year-old.
Gosh, almost too much. Jeff,
it is.
I mean,
I was completely an idiot when I was 23. Still an idiot now, but less.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Yeah, and and things happen so fast. For my career that I didn't have time to understand who I was, right, and what and that's when Kiya became into the picture, right? So, let's look at about 2007. We meet, and I'm like, okay, I'm in this pinnacle of my career at this point. I had just gone through a really, really bad breakup, which we'll talk about maybe on another episode of all of my children or something. Who knows?
No, hey, go for it.
I'd gone through a really, really bad time in my life. And when Kiya came in, I started having more clarity about life beyond federal space. Okay. Right. And that's when entrepreneurship started to resonate more. We were already doing things in 2004. We were kind of ping pong. We were still friends and things like that. But 2007 was pivotal. It was pivotal for us. I think, Kiya, you were, when I first met you, you were still working in some of the corporate stuff you were doing. But when our two brains got together, Jeff, it was like, why the hell would we want to continue to work for somebody else? Wow, that's amazing. But again, now let's fast forward to 2012, right? When we thought we had the plan, and then the bottom falls out. Yeah. So that's kind of like what all happened over the last 10 years of our lives.
There's no such thing as perfect timing.
That's the name of the book. I forgot to say that.
Yes. That was the life lesson that we learned in 2012. There is no such thing as perfect time.
Absolutely.
Talk about that a little bit. Like, what's the origin story of there's no perfect timing? Because that sounds fun. It sounds like a fun story.
I think a lot of the people that we talk to that are trying to start businesses have been stuck in this kind of cycle of planning to plan to plan to plan to plan.
Gotcha.
And it's
analysis by paralysis by analysis. Yes,
exactly.
Okay.
And so when
the only time is now. Yeah. Go ahead.
And also, Jeff, what happens when that shiny plan that you wrote down? What happens when a curveball comes in?
Right.
Like how do you most people write down these plans, right? So you always hear these fancy people say to you, write down your ideas, make them plain, and there will happen. What they don't tell you is what happens when
The box
shit
falls
hits
out.
the fan. What happens then? Like, what do you do? And that's really where Confessions, The Truth About Perfect Timing, our book, that's why we wrote it, because we went through it.
Yeah.
You know,
lived
and
it.
we
You lived it. Okay. Yeah. I learned that the hard way too when I was in the Air Force, because you spend like way too much time planning everything, right? You plan to plan to plan to plan. You've done that, right? Especially in federal space. I get it. There's this plan. That's the project, right? And it's in project, and there's the plan. And once you've been through, like, I guess the best analogy is like all plans are awesome until you say hut, right?
Yeah.
Here it is.
Because that's not really the point of planning after you've gone through the mess of execution is doing the process, right?
Yeah.
It's doing the process. It's just like the production meeting that we had, right?
Yeah.
I wrote down a bunch of stuff. Most of it kind of happened. It's not important, right? It's not important that the plan is executed perfectly. That's not, it's something to riff on, right? That's what I learned anyway. It's just like, the play is the play until like that guy gets tackled, and then the that linebacker's coming in my face. Oh, I guess I need a new plan. And it's called run.
Like Mike Tyson always says, everyone's got a plan till they get hit in the face.
Yeah, that's true.
And then everything changes.
Right. So so that is actually a oddly good transition. It never happens on this show, because now we can talk about crisis management.
Yeah.
And crisis management, I wanted to start. So like, it's fun going from being in like, I never went to war, but I did deploy, right? So I deployed twice, 59 days of hell in Saudi Arabia. And it wasn't like because there were bombs and stuff. It was just snotty subordinate and a really evil little captain who was short, and he liked to get in my face, like, and then it kind of felt like a prison. But the other one was like 4 months in Qatar, in Doha, Qatar, whatever you want to say on TV. But the fun thing about that Qatar experience was I was working with these special forces guys, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know if you guys spend any time with special forces guys, but they're like amazingly, hilariously funny and fun until they're not. And then they're amazingly scary. And it goes like that, So like you piss one guy off and suddenly you think he's going to kill you.
Anyone thinks to change, right?
Oh, yeah. And it's about something stupid, and it has nothing to do with me, right? So this lieutenant colonel was just mad in general, right?
Yeah.
And I was the only enlisted guy around. And so, right? So he's like, what the hell is that chair still doing here? It's been broken since the day. Yeah, exactly. I'm like, I don't know. Do you want it to go away now? Yes. Make it go away. Yeah. So I think I forgot my hat because I was so scared, and I picked up the chair it was a broken chair that had been there, and I kind of like looked at it and went, okay, that's a broken chair. I'll figure that out later, And then, months later, somebody says, get rid of that chair. So I put it over my head and walked it out to the dumpster. I just thought that was funny.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. That's what you do with broken chairs, apparently.
We know it.
So let's talk about some of your crisis management, because you were in federal space. I know you went to Africa. Were you doing like crisis management in Africa? Talk a little bit about some of the stories and fun experiences that you had doing crisis management.
Sure. So within our parent company, so we talked about KO thought leaders throughout this conversation, but our parent company is nDemand Consulting Services, and we support the United States Agency for Global Media.
Wow.
We provide them with global crisis management solutions, and we focus on countering violent extremism, right? So Yeah, yeah. It's interesting because I mean, my background kind of landed us there because some of the stuff I was doing for the government, and then with her Kiya's background, it landed us kind of right. There was a nice landing. But what we're really doing is we go out. We're currently on project number 10 across Africa, and we go out to federal journalist locations, and we're teaching them on how to properly communicate to avoid chaotic environments and chaotic events, right? So that's what our job is, right? So if there's a presidential election coming up that's going to be in a war-torn location, someplace in one of the countries of Africa, then we would go out there and we would start to train the journalists to get them prepped and prepared. On the other side of that is we also have relationships with trainers out there. Trainers and local coordinators. So it's not always us that has to actually go out to Africa. We've got a team that will go out. Like currently right now, we were going to be launching our next project in Goma, which is the DRC, the Congo of Africa. But they just had a volcanic eruption that just happened there. So now we may have to push that out another couple months. Yeah. But I say all that to say, some of the environments that we go in, Jeff, some of them are safe, others are not. I remember our first project, quick funny story. I remember our first project was going to be in, what was in Somalia. Now, when you think about, when you think about Somalia that you may talk to friends about or you may Google, it's not really what's actually happening there. So as we're getting our local coordinator and our trainers together, the government starts asking us questions like, well, what types of protections do you have in place to ensure no one's kidnapped? What do you have enough bulletproof vests? Do you have a contingency plan if someone does get robbed or someone does get kidnapped and held for ransom? What's your plan to get them back to the embassy? And we're like, holy shit. You know, we didn't know that it was going to be this intense.
This is Project One.
Project One.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what is that something like you can get from MetLife? Is there like a?
I wish.
It's not.
So
no.
It was a lot of favors. It was a lot of formal requests to various tribes, etc., to provide safety. And those things. So, but then on the flip side of that, we've also had training in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, which is absolutely gorgeous.
Wow. Yeah.
So it just depends. And but that's been our trajectory, man. On the global crisis management side, we do have a focus in on the continent of Africa. We have been fortunate to write a few articles that landed in Forbes and Black Enterprise and a few other things just on our experiences there and what it means to really be a crisis management support team.
Yeah.
Wow. Kiya, share.
So we kind of stumbled into the crisis management, and it became an opportunity because
that's awesome. Of course, you stumbled into it.
We did. And it's been great. It was like one of the best stumbles that we've ever done. But it came because we did such great work and project management work for other projects that we were on, and so when opportunity came about. We had some conversations with people that had seen our work before, and they were like, I think that y'all should really put in a proposal to actually start doing this work. And so we did, and we went for it, and we stumbled, like I said, but it was a great experience and a great opportunity for us. And I wouldn't take it back for anything. Wow. I just love the work that we're doing and the lives that we're impacting with the work that we're doing. So.
So did you guys go through anything that was dicey, scary? Did that happen?
Almost. Well, so let's think about Djibouti City wasn't that bad.
Djibouti. I one of the operators in Qatar, he liked rhymes, and he would say, there is no beauty in Djibouti. And that's mean, but it's a nice rhyme. So sorry, Djibouti. I'm sure there's plenty of beauty. Yeah, right. You've been there,
Oh yeah, and dicey for us is a loaded word, and I'm saying that because all of
you kind of know going in, it's gonna be right.
Right, it's
part of the environment, right?
It's something about a highly visible, dangerous presidential election where there could be a coup or there could be an overthrow of the government. And so to go into these journalists that are young, impressionable journalists, some of them are top, some of the top of their game, but they've never really handled these kind of scenarios before. And for us to have to come in and provide training to them, that's always dicey, man. It's always a scary situation for us.
Totally. Yeah. It kind of reminds, have you guys seen that movie, Whiskey Tango Foxtrot?
Yes.
Yeah.
Kind of like that?
Similarities.
The funniest joke from that movie is the Desert 10, right?
Yeah.
You remember that? The Desert 10.
How did you remember that?
Well, no, because that's a real thing. They say that in the military all the time. It's like so like for the audience that doesn't know, it's like at home you're a guy or you're a girl and you might be on the look scale like a 6 or a 7, but in the desert you're suddenly a 10. Because you've just moved to a smaller pool, right?
That's right.
That's a fun note to end on. Okay, so as we're wrapping up, I'm going to say KO Thought Leaders, and you got this cool text number that you can text the word business to. Yes. And then what happens when I text business to 678-672-1444? What happens? I get a text.
You're going to get a reply.
Yeah.
You're going to get a reply back that's going to give you a link to our book. It's going to give you links to our website.
Awesome.
And it's also going to give you our direct contact information. You're going to get our direct email address, our cell phone numbers, because we actually like to engage with people. Right? We're not the types that you're going to have to go through 3 different layers to get to us.
Right.
Just shoot the text to the number that Jeff just mentioned out. And then from there, I mean, we're open books. Yeah. We love the people and helping couple-preneurs.
And if you text booty call to the same number, you're not going to get a reply.
No.
It may not work.
So don't do that, please. Sorry, that was a bad joke. Okay.
That was perfect.
All right. So talk a little bit how people, they already know. So the best way to get in touch is use the number 678-672-1444. It's one of those tapes that I send out every time. So it's like, that's how you get everything. So I'm sure you're on the socials, you got websites, you got, talk a little bit about the book just as we wrap up.
Yeah. So Confessions, The Truth About Perfect Timing is a book that talks a little bit about our story that we talked about a little bit earlier today, but it also gives some very, very good tidbits of things that helped us along the way. For example, there's a 4-step process that we talk about in the book that I think is going to be really helpful for folks. We call it an introspective analysis. All right. But it does give you an opportunity to look 5, 10, 15 years ago. What were the excuses that made you not be successful in the things that you wanted to do? Then we go 5, 10, 15 years forward to talk about the things that you want to do to help to get you there. Yeah. It's a great tool. We learned from it. It was not something that we had to go Google because we had to do it when we lost everything.
Yeah, you kind of like learned it the hard way, right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
By living through it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's honest and it gives you exactly what we went through and what we did in order to kind of mediate some of the trials and tribulations that we went through, hopefully helping other people avoid some of those things that we. Yeah,
you're not going to avoid everything. So I like you said, hopefully. Yes, you will still fall on your face, but that's okay.
Wait.
There's nothing else we've learned. That's okay.
Yes.
That's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay. Look, you guys are still here and you lost everything.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you came back.
Okay, you.
And you're back. And I wanted to say, KO. See, so Oscar, I know you've learned how to play husband because K is first. Right. It could not be okay. Come on.
No. It'll be a whole nother conversation there, right?
Right. So this has been a blast. I appreciate you guys hanging out with me for about an hour, and you guys have a great day.
Thank you so much.
Cheers.
Thanks for taking the time to ride along with us on another episode of Vroom Vroom Veer. For podcast info and show notes, be sure to head over to vvveer.com. That's VVER.com. Man, that's fun to say. And we'll catch up with you next time here on Vroom Vroom Veer.